Hello everyone. Now this is going to be a tutorial on how to use my LJ Stats and Effects Unity package. So the first thing you'll want to do is start with a Unity project. So here we have a Unity 6 project. It's called Zombie Demo here, and we're going to basically make a zombie infection simulator using my new assets. So first things first, we're just going to make a simple object that can hold all of our characters. So we're going to call this NPCs. First step we want to do is define our own assets. So we're going to go into the assets folder. We will create a folder and we're going to call this stats and effects instances. It doesn't matter what you call this, however you prefer it is what you should name it. But I'm calling it this in order to make it more clear. So we're going to have stats, we're going to have effects, and for now let's just do another folder called other. Because let's say in a real project you'll probably have to think a little bit longer on this, but we're just going to do a little practice example. So first thing we want to do is create some stats, right? So in order to create a stat, you're going to go into right-click, create, go down all the way to LJ, stats, and then right here it says stat. So it's going to make this little blue icon. Now, we don't yet know what this stat should be called, so I'm thinking this stat should be called sickness, because we're making a zombie demo after all, right? Sickness, let's go with that. So the max value, let's just leave it 100. The minimum value, that can be 0. And the default value is 0. You know, you don't start off sick. And then I suppose we can do, what other stat should we do? Sickness is probably enough for this demo. And then we're going to do an effect. So what effect should we do? Stat effect. We're going to go to the same spot. We're going to call this one infected. Now, in order to set up an effect, you're going to do it like this. So go into your new stat that you just created, the effect. Go to the data set. We don't need to provide immunity. We're going to ignore that. Create a new element in the data set. Select sickness. And we're going to do additive 1. Multiplier, how about 1.2? So essentially what this is going to do is every 0.5 seconds, alright, this is what we've just configured. So we've created a data set that targets the sickness stat. It adds 1 to the stat and then multiplies it by 1.2. So each time it's going to add 1 and multiply by 1.2. And then that's this right here, the length, that's going to be every half a second. Continuous? Yes, because we want them to stay infected, right? We don't just want a one-time infection. Okay, perfect. Now that we have that, the only thing left is to go over here and create a stat set. So we're just going to call this one human. So since we only have one stat, we can just go with sickness, and there are no start effects. However, we also have a zombie, because this is a zombie simulator. So we're going to create another stat set and call this zombie. This time we are also going to have a sickness, but this one's going to start infected. We're going to ignore these other ones. I was working on this earlier, so now the first thing we want to do is create something to represent our zombie, right? So let's go over here and spawn this little guy in. So the first thing I like to do is, because I like to use colliders for some of this because it's a lot faster and simpler. So we just go with some rigid body, a capsule collider, and a mesh renderer. That's good enough. We're going to add a local stat handler. Now, on every object that you want to be affected by the system, you need to have a local stat handler. Now, the start effects, we can add something here. if we want to. We can add a stat here. However, we really shouldn't do this because these are currently being used to display the values of the stat. So I don't actually want to use this variable. But alright, let's go with zombie. Darn, I've made a bunch of copies of the same. My bad. Okay, so we're going to call this guy start zombie. Now, what does a zombie have? How are we going to know that he's a zombie? Well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm gonna guess one way to tell someone's a zombie would probably be some effects. So we're gonna add a particle system, call it zombie particles. Let's make it green. And then we'll just have it be a very short lifetime, about 0.5, low speed, and we'll have it emit in a spherical shape. There we go. So we're just going to keep this zombie to be, you know, like just kind of hovering with this green nastiness. So that's wonderful. Now we're going to just disable play on awake and start this thing off disabled. This particle system can start off disabled. Because our zombie, he doesn't start immediately with all of his maximum values to be 100, right? He starts as a normal guy and then he becomes sick over time. So we're going to do that. And then next step, we need to have some way for the system to respond to his actions. So we're going to add this, a listener, or I guess stat listener. Now the stat listener, or the stat change listener I should say, this is how you respond to the stat. So this is sickness, right, that he has. This analyzes the sickness and then sends a Unity event of a normalized version of the sickness into the object that is being targeted. So we're going to add, after this sickness, we're going to add a responder. Now the reason I'm doing these objects is just to keep it nice and easy to find, because this is primarily a prototyping tool, and responders can be, these responders and listeners should be a child of the local stat handler. That is what is required. So we're going to do this, and let's say, so the progressive responder, what does this do? Now this thing, it lets you create responses at different times along an NPC or a character's stat value. So let's say you want an NPC to become sick at a certain value. Well, you'll have to set it like this with this stat responder. So what do we want to happen? So, well, when the sickness is 0, we want our guy to have no particles. So we're going to disable his particles at 0. We're going to set his skin, or his material, to be human, which it was just a material I made. Doesn't really matter which one. And let's see, when do we want to start seeing symptoms? So we're going to have this set to be about 0.15. So at 0.15 is when we want symptoms to start showing up. So before then, the NPC is fine to just be a zombie. But wait, how are we going to infect other people? There we go. Perfect question. We're going to create this object called an infector. So it doesn't matter what it is, but we're going to search for apply stat effect on trigger enter. Apply effect, infected. So now what this does is we have to add a collider, of course, because this uses the physics system. So we simply add a collider, a radius. Let's add 2. So now when this object goes next to another local stat handler, it will apply this infected effect onto it, which can then cause similar damage to how this NPC is going to be shown. So these zombie particles, they start off disabled. The infector, we can leave it on, but we don't want the script to be enabled. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to set the infector to be disabled at the start. Because, you know, we don't want him to infect people when he's not sick. So which thing happens first in the next section? So now we have to set the floor. So the floor should really be really close to the last ceiling, because, you know, if the floor is 0 here and the floor is also 0 here, then both of these will be called at the same time, which can get a little bit buggy. I'm working on a way to have these set up in a grid way, like a grid pattern. So, sorry, not a grid pattern, like a row where it shows which one they are. So we're going to go 0.15 to 0.5, and that's going to be our setup for now. So now, how about that? At this stage, we probably want the guy to turn green, but he's still not infectious, so we don't want to do that yet. So next step, let's do another one. One more stage. So this one starts at 0.5, and it goes until 0.8. Actually, you know what? I feel like the particles are a better indicator of sickness than turning green. So we're going to keep the particles enabled. We're going to turn him green, and we're going to enable sickness. So after 0.5, this guy can now infect other people. That is essentially how this works. And now we're going to go, let's have him die at 1. So when he's fully sick, oh sorry, this thing's bugging out. Okay, yeah, there we go. So when this guy is at 1, then he's going to die. The zombie will be disabled. So let's do that. And we'll just do this one all the way to, I guess, 0.99. Doesn't matter. As long as, because this is essentially the final stage. This zombie only needs about 3 stages to get the point across. So this zombie, he now has a whole system set up. So first things first, I'm going to add this NPC script that I've created. So now listen guys, any project that you're working on, you'll probably want to work on the script differently. So this script, you can see it right here if you'd like to copy it. It basically just sends the NPC in a random direction. So it's only used for just this single demo. That's the only reason it's here. It basically just sends the NPC walking around. So good stuff. We're going to save our project now because we've just completed this little setup. And then we're going to add, oh, I forgot to add a nav mesh agent. As you can see, the floor is blue. I've set it up right here to be set up for an AI, nav mesh agent. So this demo NPC script relies on a nav mesh agent, so we're just going to add that real quick. Good enough. Okay, so now we have a zombie, right? But we don't want everyone to be a zombie, so we're going to start off with a human as well. So let's get out of this section and go to where we created our human data set. So we're going to just drag and drop that and then call this one human. Now there shouldn't be a reason to reconfigure that because he's good enough, you know? But wait, let's say this human has a terrible gene that makes him extra sick immediately. Let's just call it human sickly. So this guy, if he gets infected, it will immediately cause trouble. Oops, look right here. The stat change listener, I just realized that this does not do anything. We forgot to add this part. So you're going to want to put the responder in and set stat respond as your thing. So we're just going to do this for both of these before we go and create more copies of them. So this human right here, this sickly human being, right, we want this guy to immediately go to full sickness. So we're going to add a stat evaluator. What this stat evaluator does is it essentially just acts as a multiplier. So before we send the responder, we're going to send it through the evaluator. So this does stat respond, and then think of it as a filter. First it starts here, goes into here, goes into here, and then we have to add a curve. So this right here, this is the minimum value, and this is the maximum value. So it's currently going to multiply everything by 1 if we set it to be a multiplier. So we want this guy to be multiplied like this. We want him to get super sick really fast. So we're just going to make it look like this. So as soon as he's sick, he's pretty much instantly going to be showing near-death symptoms, judging by this this curve. Or I guess we can increase it a little bit because that's pretty small. How about that? So now this guy is going to get really sick really fast. So it's a good way to set it up for some variety. Now we're going to put it through into the progressive responder to do the same stuff that the other guys are doing. So that's that. Now we have a sickly human and a regular human. So let's spawn this regular human and just copy and paste it everywhere. I know this isn't good practice, but this is just a demo for now. So now we're going to just copy and paste a whole bunch of humans, make a whole bunch of instances. Hello everybody, so I actually had to go stop for a second, go do something. So we are going to resume from where we left off. So we've created a couple instances. Now I've actually configured them a little bit differently, just very slightly. But it's generally the same thing. I basically just added the same things we just did. So let's actually put them as prefabs so that if anything goes wrong, we can quickly iterate them. So let's just start creating instances. And we'll do a, how about 4 to 1, right, healthy human to sickly human. There we go. Now we will start spawning all these little guys. Now let's give it a shot. Let's see if this works. So if everything works, then we will start with a start zombie, which will then infect the human, who will then infect other humans over time as they become more infected. Let's take a look and see if this works. Wonderful. Okay, so let's follow this little start zombie. So let's take a look at his stats. So as we can see, his sickness is gradually increasing. Oh no, he's died. Oh, but he got one. He got one. So now this guy's sick. Oh, he's got another one. Okay, that was another sick victim. So far the humans have gotten sick. Let's see, is there anyone else who's sick? I don't see anyone else who's sick. So we're going to do something that's not really recommended in a simulation, but we're just trying to demonstrate how the system works. So let's just create another version of this. Let's just create this. So we're going to make it so that if they touch this sphere, they are infected. Here we go. Boom! Sweep, sweep, sweep. Okay, let's see. How many of these are infected? Should be all of them. Oh, yes, quite a few. They're infected. Okay, he's green. He's got this guy. The virus is spreading. However, in my opinion, it seems like it's killing them a little bit fast, unfortunately. I wish that perhaps they could have a longer spread time of this infection. Now, as we can see, it's spreading nicely. They're getting infected. However, they pretty much immediately die as soon as they go green. And they have a relatively low radius, so when they go and transmit their infection to another, like this guy for example, he's probably infected right now. Let's take a look. Even right now. Oh, he's not. Lucky. Okay. Let's see. What's happened with our sickly humans? Looks like 2 of them are dead, and the rest of them are fine. That's pretty good. So I'm noticing that this sickness is a little bit fast. So why don't we take this multiplier and just go 1.05. Let's see about that. Maybe it will last a bit longer. Additive, how about 0.5? Let's start with that. That way it will be a little bit slower, won't infect as many people in as fast a rate. So maybe they'll have a better chance to transmit the sickness. So this is now one of our infecteds. Okay, all 3 of these. Now see, he can live for a lot longer now that the effect has been adjusted. Now that it doesn't kill as fast as it did. It still kills, it still is infectious, but you can adjust your parameters with your disease and your and really anything you want to simulate with the system, and it will respond accordingly. So as we can see, we're just infecting all these guys. And now one cool thing about this is that the system allows you to create emergent gameplay situations pretty fast. So you don't just have to use this for, let's say, an infection simulator. It works well to create, like, let's say, heat responses. A character can be running away from a burning building, for example. A character can be freezing in the cold and go next to a fire and be warmed up. A character can have stamina, health, hunger that they need to keep track of, and more. And essentially, you can do anything with the system as long as you can, as long as it's based on a stat and an effect. So that's how it's going. Now I would like to end this video on the note that this is my first asset that I have released that I'm working on. So any feedback that would be recommended, anything that you guys feel is a good improvement for this project, feel free to give me the feedback, send me an email. If you need support or solutions for bugs in your project, please let me know. I will try my best to help you. I'll get back to you in a couple days. And I will also be continually updating this package. So this is version 0.9. I anticipate that some people will have some minor issues upon first try, but we'll see. So this is 0.9. We're going to release it, and then I'm planning to release quite a few packages actually. So I'm wanting to do a set of packages based on creating life simulators essentially. So if you want a little bit of a sneak peek, we've got stats and effects. Oh, I guess that's all the ones that I've put into this scene, but I've got quite a few packages that I'm working on. Some of these include an interaction system, an inventory system, a player controller, oh, and a whole lot more. So I hope you guys stay tuned. Subscribe for future tutorials that are going to be coming out on this system. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope that you find this useful. And that's about it. Have a good one.